Greetings, Roper. I'm Sam Weiss, and this is my senior presentation on chainmail, the past, the present, and the future. Let's do some road mapping. Yoink. Okay. So, firstly, let's get on the same page about what you're about to learn. I set out this year in my senior project to learn different methods of creating chainmail, as well as to learn about its practical and historical application. In this presentation, you'll learn how I created my chainmail and some chainmail weaves I've learned, historical application and importance of chainmail, and practical modern-day application of chainmail. Because that's a thing if you didn't know. Chainmail's everywhere when you learn to look for it. Okay, maybe not everywhere, but it's around. Okay. First up, how I made my chainmail, because yes, I made my chainmail. It took a while. Here's some glamour shots of my grand creation. It's an entire suit of chainmail armor, made out of a weave called European 4-in-1. And when I say armor, I do mean armor. You could call it chainmail clothes, but have I got a demonstration for you, an everyday, ordinary banana. In half, thirds now. Boom. Obviously a real knife. Wha! One piece. I could do this all day. I could even saw it. Never get there. Never get down to the bones. Sorry about that jump cut. The presentation bugged, but we're continuing as usual. But hold on. Let's explain what European 4-in-1 even means. What is European 4-in-1, and what even is a chainmail weave? Well, much like weaving techniques for thread and all other conventional medium, there's not just one correct way to weave the material together. European 4-in-1 is incredibly intuitively named. It is a weave in which every one ring has 4 rings going through it, and its use was popular in the old European military. You'll find often that the name of a chainmail weave is intuitively the country it was invented in, the number of rings going through each other ring in one. So Persian 6-in-1, for example, is the name of a real chainmail weave that I worked with. But this is European 4-in-1, so let's continue. Below you'll see an example of a sheet of European 4-in-1 that I made. Note the rings I highlighted in red and count how many rings go through it, which I highlighted in green. I think you'll find that 4 rings go through it no matter which ring you look at, except for, of course, the rings on the outside. Let's continue. Alright, so other weaves do exist, as touched on earlier. By no means is European 4-in-1 the only way to weave chainmail rings together. Here's some other wacky stuff. Japanese 4-in-1, European 6-in-1, Persian 6-in-1 exists but isn't on here. And then some other less formulaically named weaves, like the box weave or the serpentine weave. Of course, less traditional stuff exists. It's a material that's just as fluid as, yarn or string would be. There's tons of other crazy stuff you can do with it. My personal favorite while looking through crazy chainmail weaves was the top left here, because just look at that. It's great, in my opinion. Enough about those other crazy weaves, though. Let's get back to my project. I made it out of 4-in-1, so let's get on to that. How do you make 4-in-1? I'm going to teach you how. Sorry for that. More technical difficulties. PowerPoint is a fickle mistress. Alright. European 4-in-1 was the weave I used for my armor as opposed to other ones. Well, let's teach you how you can do the same. The magic starts with 2 pliers and a pile of jump rings and too much free time. With these things, you too can make chainmail at home. This is the kit which I currently have set up in my own desk at home. About that statement, it's completely true. I got it. I even got just like strips of 4-in-1 lying around. The pliers are there too. Still on my desk to this day. I dabble in chainmail sometimes. It's pretty fun. That's why I'm making this presentation. Alright, making a unit of chainmail. The process of making chainmail happens in steps. The first thing you'll have to do, though, is make a unit of chainmail. A large project made of chainmail can be seen as thousands of chainmail units attached together. Get used to this step because you will be doing it a lot. Calluses. I never bled though, which is good. First, take 8 jump rings and use your pliers to bend 4 of them open and 4 of them closed. Then take the open rings and slide 4 closed ones onto it, and then close that ring as well. Voila! A unit of European 4-in-1. But wait, we have 3 remaining open rings. What do we use them for? Well, let me tell you. Alright. That's where the magic happens. The remaining open 3 rings are what we use to connect this unit to its neighboring units. Observe that every unit has a center ring with 4 rings going through it. That was relatively obvious, but not so obviously, please observe how after being attached, every attachment ring also has 4 rings going through it. By the end of the process, every ring in the whole patch will have 4 rings going through them. Attachment, center, you get the idea. European 4-in-1, that's every single one. Okay. Now that the 3x3 patch is done, we can increase our scale. Chainmail can be created unit by unit, but I prefer to finish patches of chainmail and then connect them to each other all at once. This is a patch of chainmail which we just made that's 3 units tall and 3 units wide, but we still have leftover connecting rings on the right and above it. What of that? This is how we'll attach the other patches to each other. Observe below. You can see the patch and then a large strip of attached patches, and then we've attached the patch to the rest of the patches, making an even longer strip. This is the premise behind getting chainmail bigger than a single unit in size. Haha, this is a funny slide. Alright, one last step. Now that you've turned normal unconnected jump rings that you started with into units, attach those units into lines, connected those lines into patches, and connected the patches into a large sheet. The large sheet has been achieved. But no one has use for a big chainmail rectangle, much like no one has use for a big fabric rectangle. So now what do we do with it? Well, it's all about having a plan for how you want the finished product to look. As an example, here's how I made the blueprint for my chainmail leggings. Ooh, it doesn't look good. Don't worry, I took measurements. This isn't just a manic sheet of paper I made. And also I want to go to art school. I bet you can tell. The artistic value of this image is not lost on any soul, I'm sure. Okay. And the results of the fruits of your labor, the pants. Here, I'll stand really far back so that you can see them. Pants. I've got the belt still. The belt keeps them up. As do normal pants, but these ones weigh 20 pounds. Yoink. Of course, I didn't just make the big chainmail, all the clothes, and then call it a day. I experimented with making some baubles. Here's some of them. It's just miscellaneous trinkets I constructed while I was making chainmail day in and day out for during the senior project year. Hopefully by seeing this you can realize just how versatile chainmail is as a material. In my opinion, it's even more versatile than yarn, although sometimes less practical. I made a tie out of it, very snappy. I made an eye patch out of it. Not really effective as an eye patch, but you can see straight through it, so I guess it's a pretty good visor. I made plenty of dice bags. I've actually given them out as presents. I encourage you, if you want to give a loved one an artistic gift, making them a chainmail necklace, or if they play Dungeons & Dragons dice bag, or a bracelet, it shows them that you put a lot of effort into it, shows them it's like something you created. It really works. I've done it a few times. Everyone so far has appreciated it. I don't know, just a tip, nothing to do with the presentation. Enough about me though. You're probably bored about staring at my large, shiny body. And you want me to get on to the part of the presentation where I tell you about history. So, let's do that. Before I can acquaint you with chainmail, let me introduce you to his father, scalemail. Scalemail initially appeared in Egypt around the 8th century BC and was traditionally made of bronze or iron. Scalemail consisted of small metal scales that were joined together with jump rings to create a flexible sheet of armored cloth. This was a military breakthrough at the time because it was previously quite difficult to armor any area of the body that moved. Sure, you could throw a rigid carapace over your head or over your chest, but your elbow? Nothing could really be done to guard that. However, since the scales were bulky and large, the solution to a flexible armor wasn't perfect and needed innovation. That's when some Celt looked at the stuff and thought, what if we just made the whole thing out of those little rings? They're pretty small and unbulky looking. And right that Celt was. Chainmail is born. Apologies for no image. The advent of chainmail is credited to the Celts, although it is not definitely known that they made it, and the oldest surviving examples of the stuff have been found in burial sites dated to around the 3rd and 4th century BC. Chainmail was commonplace on the battlefields of man from the 3rd century BC all the way out to the 14th century AD, where firearms edged them out of relevance. It was employed by militaries everywhere from Europe to Japan, and weaves differed across countries, as previously explained. It had clear limitations. For example, chainmail's incredible flexibility offers little resistance against bludgeoning attacks, leaving the wearer bruised and fractured as if they weren't wearing any armor at all under the scrutiny of a warhammer or a horse's hoof. Overall, though, chainmail was incredibly effective because of its ability to prevent slashing and stabbing weapons from connecting with the wearer. In fact, modern-day testing at the Royal Armoury Museum stated that chainmail, is almost impossible to penetrate using any conventional medieval weapons of the time. Another clear limitation, of course, is its weight, but we're moving on. Okay. Flexible and indestructible, but we're not out of virtues yet. Chainmail can be woven into pieces of leather, pieces of scale mail, or even pieces of plate mail to create even stronger specialized armors. Due to its flexibility, you can make anything out of the stuff. A hat, a shirt, some pants, some gloves, whatever you can make out of fabric, you can make out of chainmail. Hey, just look at me if you're dubious. Covered in this stuff. Okay. Chainmail only? I think not. Who told you that you could only wear chainmail armor? Because I certainly didn't. Because of how flexible and thin it is, you can layer more armor over, or even under, your main suit of chainmail. You can stroll on the battlefield in padded armor, a gambeson usually, with chainmail over that, and plate mail over even that. If your enemy doesn't die simply from the weight of you falling over on them, then you are doing the Dark Ages wrong. By the way, chainmail was in fact the heaviest part of 14th century knight armor. You would think it would be plate mail, but being draped in this stuff, let me tell you, it's not light. Alright, the fall. Unfortunately, good things don't last forever. Remember when I told you that chainmail can't really stop a hammer from bludgeoning you to death because of how the flexibility of the chainmail makes it hard for the stuff to stop kinetic force? Yeah, sure you do. And I bet you can guess what makes a lot of kinetic force and became popular in the military around the 17th century AD. Is everyone's Second Amendment friend, the gun. Cannons had existed since around the 12th century, but Miss Flintlock Pistol down here brought the most widespread military art form of chainmail to its knees, and the rest of medieval armor with it for that matter. Black powder was simply too powerful for metal plates to connect with or to contend with, and military engagements taking place over increasing ranges, making the mobility cost of 200 pounds of armor too much of a burden to bear. Sadly, the age of chainmail armor, and all other armor for that matter, all other conventional metal armor, had ended. Speaking more on the speaking more on the weight of this stuff, the shirt alone is close to 30 pounds. Now, I'm quite rotund, but that's not an uncommon amount of weight. This entire suit is quite heavy. So you've seen how to make chainmail, how my reenactment of European armor was made, and learned about the illustrious history of the stuff. But you're not quite off the hook yet. Surely it is true that chainmail had fallen out into military irrelevance, but there's still the 21st century to contend with, and trust me, we certainly did not run out of uses for chainmail. Ah, look at the shark. He's such a cute, good boy. Alright, chainmail today. Chainmail's extreme durability when compared to that of other fabrics has not been lost on many industries of our modern society. Divers use a lightweight, form of chainmail to make shark suits in order to protect themselves from the many lacerating blades found within the mouth of the submarine predators they interact with. Butchers and factory workers who work with blades or knives will often use tightly knit chainmail gloves to protect themselves from accidental injury, and the backmost layer of pads found in Kevlar vests are actually a thin layer of chainmail because Kevlar as a material is very bad at stopping blades, so they have that extra layer of protection even in modern armor. In addition to its many practical uses, chainmail sees use in cosmetic and entertainment fields too. Magicians are capable of standing in between Tesla coils due to the invulnerability provided by their metal suits. Jewelry can and often is made of chainmail, various precious metals, and in fact a great deal of jewelry often involves chainmail, even if it's just a more traditional jeweled necklace or something of that kind. An example being a bracelet, the purpose of which is to present a jewel, but the band of which is made with chainmail regardless. It sees use in a lot of places you would never expect it to. In areas with high knife crime, police can be seen equipped in chainmail protective gear. Even NASA have put a weave of chainmail into the re-entry armor that lines their spacecraft. If you look hard, it's in a lot of places you wouldn't expect it to be. Alright, conclusion. Chainmail is extremely cool, has a rich history, and much current day relevance. Thank you, and good night.